Hello lads, I'm just going to be honest about this one. I just got a new microphone and I'm testing a lot of settings with questionable outcomes. So yeah, if you find the audio quality of this video weird and uneven, there's 3 reasons. For one, I haven't soundproofed my room yet. And 2, I forgot to save settings in Audacity between recordings. And 3, I just can't pronounce some words. I'm sorry. Anyway, enjoy the video. It's been 25 years from that time, 2001. In Germany, a group of people are set to release a new game. A very rough gem that would amaze the European communities and create a long-lasting legacy. One that outshined all forms that tried to copy it, and would even outlive the studio that created it. The Gothic game. Don't mistake it for the style, it's different. For me, Gothic is pretty hard to talk about, because being from Poland I grew with love for video games, and Gothic was one of the first ones I ever remember playing. It was up there with games like Warcraft 3 or Sacred, but being a product of its time, how exactly does it fare now?
The kingdom of Murtana, united by King Robar II.
Well, the intro video portrays it perfectly, just look at that bitrate.
Ooh.
Let's talk about technical aspects first. Steam version of the game was, for the longest time, completely unplayable. That was until THQ finally got their hands on the series and updated it to work. Until it didn't. However, they gave us workshop support, and that's exactly what we need. So let's go into the Steam properties of the game and set it first. We're going to install the Onion patch into the game. Now look into the game folder and modify the ini files. We can finally alt-tab out of this game without suffering from random crashes. We're gonna talk about mods later, but this is good enough. There's no saving the pre-rendered cutscenes in this game. They are cursed even when upscaled. So what is happening here? Well, it starts as a tale about a king fighting his war against orcs. But we're not part of that. Directly at least. To defeat the orcs, the king's army requires a powerful material called the magical ore. To acquire it, he sends more and more prisoners into the mining colony. And that's where magic comes into play. To stop the convicts from escaping, the king sends 12 powerful mages to create a magical barrier that would stop anyone from leaving the area. However, something went wrong. The barrier became much bigger than intended, and the prisoners made an uprising. Now the whole colony was under new leadership. The king needs this ore like diabetic man and insulin, so he makes a deal, and sends anything the prisoners want in exchange for derivatives of magical ore, all the while still dropping more and more convicts into the meat grinder of the mining colony. And that's where we come in. There's no character creator, no stat allocation. You're just put down into this world, and then immediately put down again. Only to be finally saved by the best thing known to man, Adam Bauman,
Diego.
who seemingly voices half of the more important NPCs in the Polish version of the game.
Lepiej się w nic nie
Wybierz
pakować.
co. Wyświadczyłeś mi przysługę. Teraz ja wyświadczę przysługę tobie. Witaj. Idź porozmawiać z Krukiem.
In the English version, well...
You needed help. Otherwise, Bullet and his boys might have killed you. And I couldn't just stand by and watch.
let's just call him Diego and call it a day. We're gonna touch up on the dubbing of the game later. For now, what's important is that there are 3 camps in the colony, and Diego is a very big advocate for the old camp, the biggest one in the colony, and very probably the first one you're going to see and enter. However, he doesn't force your hand, so after explanations, he walks away. And that's when you're given control. But what kind of control is it? To say it bluntly, Gothic is the definition of an Eurojunk game. Euro stands for whatever godforsaken European country the game came out of. And the junk is just developers living in troubled times and still figuring out the mechanics. A small trivia, for example, Gothic 1 wasn't supposed to have mouse support in the beginning. That's because early 2000 the mouse design had this, a shitty rubber ball. It was imprecise, it was annoying, and you needed to clean it constantly. So what I want to say is this: the game's controls and interactions will feel weird and abnormal, especially in the beginning. But with some patience, guides and tweaks, you can't get through it. And becomes pretty natural too. Even then there were some badly designed elements, like the inventory system. No matter what the nostalgia Gothic fanatics will say about it, it just sucks. Going to your inventory one file at a time is atrocious, even though there's not that much going in it. But Gothic has no inventory limit. You can't just pick everything. Are those random pipes and clubs worth anything? Maybe, but your inventory will be cluttered sooner or later. To fix it, we can just install any inventory mod, the one working with Onion Patch Preferred. It's going to be the only other mod that you will see me using. For now. And if Gothic 1's controls feel too bad, there's an option to turn on Gothic's 2 version of movement, which feels a bit more modern. You won't be escaping the junkiness either way. But with all those options, can we finally play the game? Yes, and it works incredibly well too. As long as you know the controls, there's no tutorial. But the game's beginning area is a very good place to learn of the basics and interactions in the world, and with some exploration you can be rewarded with a decent vantage point that oversees the whole colony. Granted, what you will see depends on your render distance. Give me a second. Yes, this is much better. Even for a game from 2001, this is impressive. And it doesn't feel that aged. Gothic's graphics were on par with AA games. It released at a similar time with something like Morrowind, and looking at them both side by side, tell me which looks worse. Okay, now that I've got the fandoms fighting, let's get to the next point. It's true that some of those textures nowadays are very low resolution. We could add in some mods to fix it, and I tried that with varying results. This kind of graphical implementation sometimes works, but sometimes...
What the fuck is this?
Overall, the biggest improvement is adding the lighting system with a DirectX 11 renderer, but you might be tweaking the light colors a bit. And the best results would be seen at night, when there's lots of lights coming from different places. It's also one way to see how fake some lights are. If in doubt, don't try to improve what already looks decent. So let's talk about the colony itself. It's big, especially for its time. There's lots of places to explore. We're talking about caves, forests, ruins, and even some dungeons. Everything you could ever want. Obviously, the main camps are our focus for now. So coming back to Diego's explanations on the colony, there's the old camp, which is the biggest one. They are the people who trade with the outside world using magical ore. However, there are two other camps. They are the ones who are more inclined to get out. The new camp is made of mercenaries and mages who gather the ore to explode the barrier. And there's the sect camp, which is high on its weed and claims that some kind of god will liberate them. That god, of course, only speaks with them when they are high on said weed. But it's apparently pretty good stuff because everyone else wants some of it. Those three camps aren't there just for lore and flavor. At the end of the day, you will have to choose and join one of them. The most available option is right at the start. Just as Diego said, the old camp is the biggest and it's also the closest. And considering it's run by greedy convicts, the situation there isn't that good. Walk around and you will be politely asked for protection. Refuse and suddenly half of the camp wants you dead. Just kidding, not dead. Murder is very frowned upon in our civilized society of prisoners. Instead, Gothic has one of the most unique mechanics. When you get beaten, or beat an NPC, they will fall to the ground, unconscious for a minute. During that time, you can loot them. And if you have a sharp weapon, you can even finish them off with a very satisfying animation. This, however, does not apply to bows or magic, so be careful when pulling people into ranged combat. But in between all the beatings, when you spend some more time in Gothic, you will notice that its main flavor is its atmosphere. And that's something Gothic is absolutely incredible at, even beating many modern games. But what exactly makes Gothic work so well, be so immersive and atmospheric? And the answer is that there was a lot of effort put into it. Where in most games you have day and night cycles, there would be barely any real difference between them. In Gothic, however, every NPC has a schedule set to certain hours of the day. So during the day you will see people working and hanging around, but at night you will see them resting, maybe sitting at a campfire, or just sleeping in their huts. That goes for every single NPC, with a few logical exceptions. One other unique element is the idle chatter, which again, Gothic has a unique take on. Unlike other games, where the chatter is full-on conversations that become grating after a while.
Keeping it together, Bree? I'm alright, as long as I don't think about it too much. Keeping it together, Bree?
Gothic's idle chatter is instead a snippet of conversations. Listen to the difference.
It was obvious that there was trouble.
Rely on somebody and you're in trouble. That's how it goes.
There must be.
Rely on somebody. I'm not listening to all that
Very probably
blathering
right.
anymore.
Idiotic.
Yes, instead of full conversations, it's more like you only hear what NPCs say louder from their dialogue. And it's randomized too, so you won't be hearing the same string of sentences constantly. All of this is also enhanced by how you can react with the world, and how the world can react to you. If you pull your weapon in front of someone, they will be on guard. Go into someone else's hut, and you will be kicked out.
Don't try that again!
If you need information, you can ask a random NPC for some generic dialogue and hints. You feel lost in the camp? You could just go to the cartographer and buy a map of the camp itself.
I'm Graham. I draw maps. I haven't seen you here before.
I'm a
What do you
cartographer.
want?
You have a secret hatred for the cartographers? Just beat him up, steal the maps, steal everything he owns. That will teach him some goddamn respect. Alright, we should talk about camps again. As Diego has said, if you want to be someone, to actually be living in the colony as a human being, you need to join one of those camps. But the requirements can be very tricky. Understand what the gurus want without speaking to them, or do some favors for the shadows in the old camp. Usually you must prove your usefulness. New camp is my favorite, but it's also one of the hardest one to join, because there's only a few things you can do, and they can't be missed. Why is putting a spell on the guard as one of the requirements? Gameplay wise, joining new and old camps is usually the best choice. The cultist camp is interesting, but has a very short progression. I imagine Gothic Remake will expand on it more. And if you've played Gothic, tell me which camp is your favorite. I am definitely not making a poll. Leveling up is also something that you need to put work in. For every level, you gain points, but can't use them yourself. You need a teacher for that.
Come on, you motherfucker! Ah, shit! God damn it! Same shit, different.
Want more strength? Diego will buff you right up. Want to learn to fight better? Hell yeah, the Arena Master has got you covered. And it's not just flavor. Your fighting skills are limited mechanically, rather than just skill. What I mean by that is that the junk of this game can very much expand into the combat system, but in a pretty clever way. Your hero doesn't know how to fight properly. He can't even hold his sword right. His slashes will be slow and leave him vulnerable for longer periods of time. By itself, you can defeat some weak mobs and other human opponents, who also never held a weapon in their hand since they were born. But gain training in one-handed weapon and suddenly you grip your weapon properly. Your slashes are faster, and now you can fight like a proper man. However, even untrained, the junky combat shines through. So instead, Gothic is limiting you by those levels and training, and you will feel it. Especially when you fight an opponent who takes no damage from your attacks. Then it's a definitive answer of, you are not supposed to be here. Leave. That said, do you think Gothic is a very balanced game with those combat mechanics? Absolutely not. And you will be frustrated by it. Occasionally, but you will. Some things are just too junky to work properly, and some are just badly designed. The main plot of this game is also very interesting at the beginning, since you actually have no real main quest. But you have a direction, since before you were dropped, one of the mages chose you to bring a message to his friends inside the barrier. This is your only pointer, and it's false. No matter what way you do this, completing this quest gives you a decent reward, but the quest just ends here either way. and what you thought would progress the game didn't in fact progress it at all. This is why I call Gothic an immersive RPG, and one of the best ones. Because at the beginning you don't even know what the main quest is. You're supposed to be lost in this world, to experience it. If you are a person looking for main quests and finishing games, then Gothic isn't really for you, because its focus is on the experience of being trapped in the colony, and especially at the beginning, it doesn't give you any feeling that you might be the hero of the story. You get beaten at every corner, you're weak and untrained, forcing you to work hard. Then, when you adapt to all the junk, you can finally experience the first chapter of this game in its full glory. And then it gets worse. Now for the main quest of this game. The next part of this review is going into spoiler territory, and I'm bundling all my criticisms there. So if you want to experience Gothic 1 by yourself, you can tag out now. Also, it's been out for 25 years, you really should have played it. Who watches Gothic 1 reviews in 2026? Going into chapter 2, the game becomes very linear with what you have to do. For this one, it's helping the sect Brotherhood as they prepare a ritual to invoke their god, the Sleeper. And it's also the chapter where you will really start feeling the English dubbing of this game.
Scram! You have no business to be here!
I'm searching for the focus.
Unfortunately, you're too late for that. I've already found it. And I'm keeping it for myself!
I'm gonna surprise you and tell you that I don't really play Gothic in English, since I'm Polish and the Polish voiceover is just overall superior. There's more charm to the characters and their voices fit the setting so well, while in the English version everyone just sounds rough in general.
Sounds to me like the mages are your problem.
Yeah, but they're a problem that's hard to solve. A few years back, one of the shadows tried to stab the High Magician of the Circle of Fire while he was sleeping. They found him later in the Outer Ring. In fact, he was scattered all over the Outer Ring.
Widzę, że masz trochę problemów z magami.
Tak, i to problemów, które niełatwo rozwiązać. Kilka lat temu jeden z cieni próbował zasztyletować we śnie arcymistrza magów ognia. Faceta znaleziono potem w zewnętrznym pierścieniu. Jeśli chodzi o ścisłość, rozsmarowanego po całym zewnętrznym pierścieniu.
What's your problem?
Leave me alone, man! Everyone's a problem with me! It all started when I built my hut. Don't build your hut close to the ditch, they said. But none of these bastards told me what would happen if I still did it. When I came back from the mine a few days ago, I had a second door. Those pigs, I hate them. I can't tell you how much I hate them. Now everybody runs through my hut. Every idiot.
Ile razy mam wam powtarzać, sukinsyny, żebyście nie przebiegali przez moją chatę?
Co cię ugryzło?
Zostaw mnie w spokoju! Mam was wszystkich serdecznie dość! Wszystko zaczęło się, gdy zbudowałem sobie tę chatę. Wszyscy mówili, nie buduj chaty tak blisko rowu. Ale żaden z tych sukinkotów nie powiedział mi, co się może stać, jeśli ją tu jednak wybuduję. Jak wróciłem z kopalni kilka dni temu, miałem dodatkowe drzwi. Banda wieprzy, nienawidzę ich. Nie wyobrażasz sobie, jak ja ich nienawidzę. Teraz wszyscy przełażą przez moją chatę, jakby nigdy nic. Każdy cholerny dupek.
To nie było zbyt mądre. Tylko zachowaj to dla siebie.
There's few moments that are so bad it's good, especially when it comes to insane characters, and some with particular characteristics.
You're Talus, the one who was mugged?
Leave me alone. I don't want to talk about it.
I can help you to bring the almanac back.
Really? I was mugged by goblins, and now I'm supposed to go there and get the book back. I have a suggestion to make. I'll show you the way to the almanac so you can get it back.
Give me 50 ore and I'm in.
What? That's robbery. All right, then. Tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready. We can leave now.
Okay. Follow me.
The best quest of chapter 2 is when we are finally sent into the mines. The swamp camp really needs the mine crawler's juices and we are sent to get a good amount of it. There's some preparation that needs to be done to finish this quest. And traveling through the deepest parts of the mine is a good reward. This brings us back to the combat and exploration of this game, because training your character is one thing, but actually equipping it with gear is something else. Sure, you can buy your weapon from someone, but you won't be finding anything interesting in the wild, like at all. The exploration of Gothic 1 is interesting until you realize that all those herbs everywhere aren't used for any real purpose. There's no alchemy here, and most of those caves and ruins can get you a health potion at best, bundled with some useless junk. Turns out the best loot is on the characters, but you can't strip them of armor like it's Oblivion. But weapons are special. I beat one NPC to get his weapon and completely untrained, I destroyed the whole crawler nest. It also helped me beat another NPC to finally get a good two-handed weapon, which is very rare at this point. Either way, aside from the mine quest, there's still some fetch quests to be done. And there's quite a lot of those throughout the chapters, so I'm going to skip most of them. Turns out, Sleeper doesn't really like being summoned, but he gives you a vision of Orc Cemetery, where you might find your answer. And this is going to be our first encounter with the Orcs, which have a moveset very similar to human opponents, but are overall more aggressive. It's also a good moment to talk about Gothic and its tendency to softlock itself. Occasionally it's because of how the NPCs want to interact with you, and occasionally it's because of black magic, I guess? For the good news, the Onion patch crashes like memory violations never happen, but patching this game will usually exchange one problem for another. There's not much you can do, except save often and check the guide every hour or so in case you feel something's off. After the very uneventful quest, we're done with the swamp camp for the rest of the game, and it's onto the new camp to find help against the Sleeper, and to destroy the barrier. That's his idea. The water mages want to use the focus stones that were first used to create the barrier to destroy it. Ironic. But for some reason they never gathered them up. They are still left in some ruins, scattered around the map. This is a fetch quest, but it's more unique because we're not the only ones there. Gothic 1 went through few iterations before it became what it is now. One of its first version was more co-op focused with 4 characters: Diego, Milton, Leston and Gorn. They are also the characters that you would see on most box arts. Their role in Gothic is more sidelined, however, as they will surprisingly appear and help the main hero with his quest, with each having different approaches on how to gather them and giving us a unique look into some pieces of the area's history. Look at this massive pillar. Getting the focus stones is a great adventure, one that ends in murder. Not ours, or our friends exactly. The fire mages in the old camp were just being brutally murdered as we were on this quest, and we needed their help, so we need another option. One that was hinted very long ago.
His name is Xardas.
I mean, you have Diego, Gorn, Xardas.
Xardas is a name that most Gothic players will know very well. Aside from the multiple pronunciations that his name gets with every voiceover and over many entries, he's the second most important character in the Gothic series. Right after the main hero, obviously. He even had a mobile spin-off on some Nokia 3000 phone. I didn't play that game myself. My phone wasn't that advanced for something so beautiful back in the day. Getting to Xardas is quite a challenge. Finding him is easy. Just look for the most edgy tower in the colony. It's his golems that are the problem. You need to investigate and find out their weaknesses yourself, which usually is an opposite element to what they are. You can't defeat Ice Golem with fire spells, but the ice spell won't work on the fire one, for some reason. Either way, our encounter with Xardas is very charming.
Who dares to disturb me in my studies?
My name is...
I don't wish to know your name. It's insignificant. All that matters is that you're the first person in years to have solved my golem's riddles.
Xardas, unlike the other mages, was very much interested in why the barrier turned out the way it did. And he was so desperate he turned to dark arts. After hearing about the Sleeper, he gives us the objective of sneaking into the Orc Temple. But to do that, we need to do some talking with orcs and more fetch quests. The main one leading us to the free mine.
I wouldn't mind forgetting about this little argument.
In some games you have that certain segment. You know, that moment. The sequence that is so terrifyingly bad, you tremble just at the memory of it. Something that you would really want to ask the developer, why did you do this? Why did I have to suffer through this? And the free mine is that moment in Gothic 1. It's the biggest show of Gothic 1's combat and logic problems that weren't ever fixed. For one thing, Gothic 1's combat mechanic is built mostly for one-on-one encounters. That's because you only have focus on one enemy, and no matter how wide you swing your weapon, only that enemy will be dealt damage. So when you fight multiple opponents, you will be mechanically at a very big disadvantage. The second problem is, you can't counter any ranged attack. You can try to evade, but it's not very effective when enemies can shoot one bolt per second. And this isn't a Souls-like game, right? Yeah, Demon Souls comes out in 2009. So imagine being put into a situation where every single enemy has a crossbow, has an overlook on you, and is very scattered. That's the inside of a free mine location. But not everything is lost. You have Gorn with you.
Hello! A member of the old camp is dead, and your name was mentioned in connection with his death. I wouldn't mind forgetting about this little argument.
Okay, so Gorn occasionally wants to beat us up, because his logic deems us as the enemies of New Camp for some reason. It's very clear to say this is the worst section of Gothic 1, and it's one that if you don't want to challenge yourself by arbitrary standards, you could just use cheats. Press B, type Marvin, and press B again. With this, we can have cheats unlocked. Pressing F8 allows you to get back from the dead and fly around the colony. That's mostly all you'd ever need. If you really want to go hard, just find a cheat sheet somewhere on the internet. Theoretically, the free mine could be optional, since if you want to, we could go ahead and kill all the orcs and get into the temple by force. Which is long and annoying to do, and definitely not what I did. Anyway, Sleeper Temple is the final dungeon, and it's a very proper one, filled with puzzles, unique enemies, and multiple pathways. Even now, new mechanics are being used, so you gotta stay on your toes. Main objective is to go through, find and kill the more unique shamans. But they pose another problem. Some of them can just outright stunlock you to death with their spells. There's one more hurdle. If you thought the game would be ending soon, you would be mistaken. The last shaman in the temple is invincible. You cannot defeat him unless you use gravity. You could technically skip another hour of this game if you do that, but the proper way is to go back to Xardas and tell him, yeah, I need help. Which sends us for the last loot gathering, getting the best armor and the sword Uriziel, which looks quite different in the Alchemia shop. That's not my Uriziel, give me back the donk sword! You can also teleport back into the old camp and slaughter everyone inside. With all of that finished, there's not much stopping you in the temple, except the final confrontation.
At last, we meet again.
Some of the sect members have left to find the sleeper, and this small army somehow slipped through the orc camp, and many closed gates to get here, and it's the second worst encounter in the game. You don't really fight the sleeper directly. Instead, you just pierce his hearts and go home.
When the sleeper was banished into his own dimension, I returned to daylight.
Also, I'm sad to say this ending got retconned in Gothic 2, but we'll get there someday. So, for the final verdict, was Gothic 1 a good game? Well, I wouldn't say so. The immersion factor is incredible and the world is amazing, especially at the beginning, but it loses its charm slowly and with last sections it feels forced, buggy and rushed. The game will occasionally softlock and you will die from random reasons. High FPS can make the fights unstable. And traveling is gonna end up a massive chore when you've already explored everything. At the end of the day, it's more of a piece of gaming history that cemented itself into the old school RPGs, and is the inspiration for people who want to make this type of game. The one which I call Gothic likes will try to take what Gothic made without understanding where all the passion and creativity came from. It's got a following, but it's a small cult following. However, among that cult following are developers that even now wish to recreate the experience that Gothic created, with varying results. But that's only talking about official creations. The modding community for Gothic is massive and very dedicated. They have created incredible add-ons to the game, not just on the graphical side. There are full overhauls, expansions with additional mechanics and brand new stories. Most of them you can just look up on the workshop. As I said in the beginning, Gothic really did outlive its creators. The studio that created it, Piranha Bytes, is dead. And it will die too, mark my words. To finish this review, there's one specific mod that I want to talk about. The one that I really understood that Gothic as a series would be incomplete without. The In Extremo Restoration mode. Hell yeah, brother! This is what this is all about! Yes!